Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Palmer McIntyre. I welcome you to our Cities, Towns, and Counties for Trails Working Group, and I welcome you today for one of our webinar series. We're sharing presentations from the Great Trail State Conference that was in September 2024, and today is February 5th, 2025, and we're very excited to have Elizabeth Jernigan and Andy Jones here from the City of Greensboro to talk about trail safety, an overview of Greensboro's rescue marker program. So I'm just going to go ahead and let them start the presentation. And if you haven't said where you're from in the chat, please do that. Elizabeth and Andy, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having us, Palmer. We have given this presentation a couple times, so if you've seen it before, hopefully it was that good and made you want to come back. But we're excited to be here just to talk a bit about trail safety and a program that Andy and I did not develop, but we kind of took over and have continued to expand how this operates within the city of Greensboro. Let's see. Hold on, trying to figure out our technology, of course. There we go. All right, so these are just some of the areas that we're going to be focusing on, some of the steps that you want to consider if you're going to implement a rescue marker program in your community, who should be involved in that program, and what strategies you can use to educate your users on trail safety, so hopefully they don't have to be rescued to begin with.
Elizabeth, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but your
Sure.
screen is a little bit truncated, like it's not quite fitting to the screen.
Weird. Okay, let me try to go out. I'm on full screen. Is that any better?
Yeah, it's a little bit truncated on the left-hand side, but we can see half of the number 1, and then we can see the word back.
That's so weird.
I've got the whole screen.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, good. It's just Palmer then.
I apologize. Go ahead.
Yep, no worries. Okay. These will be the areas that we'll be focusing on today. So a little bit of background about the city of Greensboro is we are a city of about 300,000 people, but we have a significant amount of specifically hiking and mountain biking trails around our 3 watershed reservoirs. And we're very fortunate in that all of these areas are covered by cell service, so it is very easy to provide that communication aspect within our watershed trail system. We have about 30 miles of hiking trail, 35 miles of mountain biking trail, and almost probably 40 miles now of greenway. You can see the 2 stations that we utilize for our rescue operations. Traditionally, we use Station 41, but with the expansion of our watershed trail system, we were able to expand operations out to Station 2. So for those of you that collect trail and greenway count data numbers, I just want to give you a moment to think about like how to use that information in really, really meaningful ways. So it's great for economic development. It's great for kind of understanding stress and maintenance needs on your trail system. But for us, this data was instrumental in being able to expand our emergency response program to this station because we were able to demonstrate such need through that expansion, and knowing that the number of people were constantly increasing that were using specifically our mountain bike trails. So as far as implementing the program, I'm going to let Andy kind of take over and talk a little bit more about how it developed.
So we started our trail rescue station at 41. Once we started seeing increased usage on the trail system, we had a couple of calls that people were lost on the trail, and they would call 911, but we didn't have a good system to get to them. And what would wind up happening is it would take us 45 minutes to an hour to locate somebody on a trail. And out of those calls, we had a particular battalion chief, and his son was an Eagle Scout that developed a trail marker system to try to reduce response times when accidents did happen on the trail system. It started with that project. A database was built with just printed maps, and we ran our response out of a notebook, basically, with the trail markers listed and the locations. From that, it progressed to bringing in some hand-me-down bikes. We had a gator that we started trying to utilize. And so it started with that Eagle Scout project and then progressed as technology increased and as we got better equipment, we could fine tune our response. And that's the path I'll kind of take you on, is how the program has progressed over the last several years.
So when this program started as an Eagle Scout project, then the signs that we used were just like these plastic base signs, and then there were stickers that people manually stuck onto each of those signs. So a little bit cumbersome, but it served its purpose and set a really good foundation for the current signs, which are 6x6 aluminum coated reflective signs. While people aren't generally supposed to be out on the trails after dark, we know that they are going to be out there anyway. And we know that if something happens, we are going to be rescuing them regardless of the time of day. So we just went ahead and proactively got those reflective ones. And there are some pros and cons to both. I mean, if you're early in your program, using something that is really affordable to do like a demonstration project is a really great strategy. These did kind of fall apart fairly quickly. Some of the lessons that we learned were because we had a very linear trail system, using the mile markers was a big challenge because people felt very strongly about exact mileage. This was before GPS watches and all of that stuff was commonplace. But because people were focusing more on the mileage than the trail name, we weren't sure where they could be in a potential emergency. They would just be like, oh, I'm 2.5 miles in, but they wouldn't know which trail because they might have crossed a street and the trail name changed. So we opted to take those mile markers off when we upgraded to the aluminum signs. But there was a pretty strong subset of hikers that felt very strongly about that change. But we've overcome it. We still get occasional comments about wanting that mileage on there, but particularly with our natural surface trails, we know that trail mileage changes pretty frequently as we're realigning trails and trying to continue to build our trail system out as being a very sustainable trail system. So the main downfall with the aluminum coated signs is that they are a bit more expensive and they're also harder to replace. So when we have significant storm damage and we lose those signs, signs just disappear. I'm not really sure why. I don't know why anybody would want one of these signs, but they do disappear. And when we have to replace them, we really have to wait until we have a sheet of signs that we can cut, because to do it individually, they're very expensive. But if you're ordering these signs, we're happy to provide any templates. Just remember that you always need a sign for both directions. So if it's on one side of the tree, it also has to be on the other side of the tree. Originally, this was developed again before our time, but it was developed in collaboration with the county and other municipalities so that every system would have its own numbering mechanism. This was the numbering mechanism that we are still following, and those numbers are available for other municipalities that they choose to embark on the trail marker program. This is particularly important because people don't always know or care what jurisdiction they're in. If they have an emergency, they're going to be calling 911 and it's going to go to the appropriate agencies. And so we really are working to expand this, particularly around our watershed trail system, where we do have some trails that are managed by the county, so that when those emergency calls come in, the crews can collaborate appropriately.
So I'll talk to you a little bit about how we operate, how Guilford Metro has kind of partnered with us and allowed us to be able to operate within this system so you get a consistent response when you call 911. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we actually run our calls. Early on, before we actually got going and tracking the nature code of trail response, we ran these calls, but we didn't have a good way of tracking it. 2021 is when we actually produced the nature code to start tracking an actual trail response. And this map just shows you the location of where some of these calls occurred. So it doesn't give you the whole picture. It just gives you the picture of when we started tracking that actual nature code. But you can tell by looking at the green is the smaller number, the red's the more focused area, but you can tell we've had enough calls to justify having units on both sides of the trail system to respond, to cut down on the response times. So currently this is our response plan. You get 2 GFD engines. One would be one of the trail response stations. One would be an additional engine to respond for medical support. You get what we call Fire Bike 1. You get a UTV. You're going to get a battalion chief who would be your command officer, a GFD safety officer, and we also automatically dispatch our heavy rescue, which carries water equipment, boats, and a motor in case we need that response. And then you get truck 5, which will respond with our double boat trailer. And we carry Zodiac boats on that in case where we actually locate the patient, if it's better to extract from water than to take them out by land on the trail system. And I'm going to walk you through a little bit more of that. So like I said before, initially when this program started, we were running off of the trail markers and we were running off of notebooks and maps. Over the last several years, we've been able to implement GPS that tracks where every trail marker is. And we put that in the CAD system, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. And then we've also started utilizing CalTopo, which has been a big benefit for us too. So again, this picture just kind of shows you the split of where our stations are. Both stations have mountain bike capability. They also have UTVs. And what we tried to do is split the response area in half to where, based off of where it pings that trail marker, determines which trail team you get, 41 or 2. Going back to that, initially when we started transitioning out of the notebooks, paper maps, things of that nature, we were able to get each trail marker GPS into our CAD system. So every fire truck carries a computer like the one I'm on right now, which shows the whole city. We have AVL on all of our apparatus, but you can pull this map up and see every trail marker within the city limits and just outside the city limits, anywhere it's been GPSed in there.
And each of these trails are essentially set up like a street in our system. So if you just think about it as a street with houses, the trails are the street names, and then the rescue markers are the address points.
So within that, it took us a little while. We still had the notebooks that we would do pre-plans on all these trail markers. We would basically create a game plan for response to whatever trail marker it was. That way you could get there in the shortest amount of time. You had a determined plan for extraction. You could stage units wherever you needed to stage them. And we had all that in those notebooks that I spoke about. And then we were able to transition and to get all that information uploaded into CAD, into our pre-planned system. So I use the example right here, Wild Turkey Trail 86 marker. If that call gets called into 911, they can take that in. It'll ping that location on our MCT. Our guys can select the pre-planned part on our call. And then this is the information that they could look up as they're responding or prior to leaving the station. And most of the time they would pull it en route. to the call. And it just kind of tells you, all right, I've got 41 coming. We're taking the Polaris. I'm going to ask for squad 250. We're going to stage at Quaker Landing Road. And then it gives you the access. It gives you more than likely the quickest patient removal. And then it's also some reminders to request rapid SOS. Ask the patient to stay to the closest marker that they last remembered. And then it also allows us to have EMS staging, and we can upgrade to a trail response based off of this pre-plan. We've got it a little bit more automated than that now, and I'll show you that. So since having all that uploaded into our CAD system and implementing those pre-plans, we've also added a common operating platform, which is CalTopo. And it's a map-based system that we can go in and edit and log all of our shortcuts and things in, and it stays there for us. So when we get a call, we've actually got a trail response map that has our shortcuts marked on it. We can drill down on that marker. It also allows us the option to put tracks on where we can track our responders in a live feed. The other mapping system on the MCT would allow us to see where our people are, but we couldn't necessarily see the pre-planned shortcuts without pulling up that PDF form. So this is the CalTopo response map that we use now. What you see in orange are like some of the predetermined shortcuts. And you can drill down on that marker and see everything around it. They go in, and all of our trail response units go out and pre-plan these markers once a year, where they may have an access problem. Something may have changed where they need to change the shortcut. They can update this system. So when we get a call, obviously they're going to have it on the MCT, but they'll pull this CalTopo map up, and it allows them to operate a little better. It also tracks, and I'll show you that. So what you're looking at now is the CalTopo map, and the tracks that you're actually seeing are the circle with the V over to the left of the screen is where the patient is. And the tracks you're actually seeing are our guys in the Zodiac coming by water. Basically, they were setting up for a water extraction, and I think this actual call, they wound up going out by land, but they had already splashed the boats. And as a command officer, I can pull this map up, and a lot of times the guys in command of these calls, Battalion 5, Battalion 4, run a lot of them. They'll stay in their office, and they can run this scene from the office by using this tracking, and they can tell by where the guys are going, hey, based off of where this rapid SOS is plotting, you need to go right. And they can run a stationary command instead of trying to respond. But like I said, these tracks are our guys in the boats working to where the patient was. So this call right here is a race that happened, I think, what, a couple years ago?
Yeah.
2 years ago now. But it really allowed us to justify expanding our trail team from not just Station 41, but over to Station 2 to cut down response time. So this actual race spanned almost the entire trail system. It started out off of
Burmill Park and Owl's Roost.
yeah, over to the other side near Kingfisher. And I think we've had our trail team expanded for right at a year now. We put them in service at 2 last April. But this particular call, I'll walk you through. The race started up around that Kingfisher area. It came all the way over. And this is the Wild Turkey map. This is the CalTopo map. And what you see, those orange dots right there, are a shortcut that they determined was better real time than what we had in our pre-plan previously. So this call was dispatched. These are the tracks you see. You got water tracks, you got bike tracks, but they came in. The call was called in at 86. They come in, they drilled down, they saw that shortcut, they got onto the trail by the shortcut. They were able to hear some people calling for help at that point and made a decision to go left immediately instead of going up and around. They were able to make patient contact. Like I said, they splashed the boats. They were bringing boats around, but made the decision to go out by land. But the main thing I want to drill down right here on this response is at the beginning of the presentation, we talked about when we first started all of this, response times were around 45 minutes to an hour just to make patient contact. With all the planning, the GPS, the trail markers, the CalTopo, we've really been able to tie all that together. And this particular call, the dispatch time was at 1:21 in the afternoon. Bike team made contact at 1:37. So you're looking at a 16-minute patient contact time for us to be dispatched, get all of our equipment out, get ready to go, and be on the trail system, making patient contact and rendering medical care within 16 minutes. And the patient was removed by land or right at 1:59 and then transported by 2:05, going to Cone Hospital.
So just to follow up on that, it's another lesson that we have really been trying to build off of is the value of special events and coordination with your emergency response crews. If they don't know that a special event is occurring, they can't pre-plan for that event as well. We know that the more people are on trails, obviously these people are competing, they're going faster, they're going harder, they're likely to take a spill. And when they do, it's going to be hard. So we have really been working to better coordinate with our special events office to make sure that everybody is aware of the events that are occurring on our trail system so that they can ensure that they have adequate staffing available and equipment, and just making sure that everybody's on the same page with what's happening. This is all part of a broader community engagement strategy. And you can see this is, I believe this event was part of either Trails Day or we also do like a media day. And we just bring out all the news outlets and they really like it. It's fun. You get all the big fire trucks, you get everybody out on bikes, the bike teams out there riding around. So it's really fun footage and just really great safety messaging. So highly encourage everybody to partner with emergency response and your communications teams on these types of events, especially if the weather's good. So a lot of people out, a lot of fun on those days. We always have them collaborate on any of our trails related events, particularly those around Great Trails State Day, Trails Day, and just helping people understand what they need to do. Our biggest goal, of course, is prevention, making sure that people know how to dress, where they're going, telling people where they're going, what they need to bring, what they need to eat. And then in our instance, we always just hone in on people knowing what trail they're on and what their trail marker is. As you can see in some of those maps, we have a very linear system, but a lot of times we will have a bike trail and a hiking trail right next to each other. And because of all the switchbacks and the topography, sometimes the trail marker will ping to a different trail. So it's really important that we always have people know what trail they're on. So we include all of that information in these outreach events. We do social media posts. We go speak with our clubs. We've spoken with our trail running clubs, our fat tire clubs, our hiking clubs. We work with our lake staff who operate out of the marinas that are part of the trail system to educate people as well. So lots and lots of opportunities to continue that conversation. This was just a quote I pulled in. I think our communication staff just like to make up quotes for me, but that was a good one. So I included that one in there, but just early and often throughout the process, people are always going to go to the fire trucks at our special events. So it's a great way for them to communicate as well. And for the whole community to realize that this really is a city initiative. It's not just one department. We work together to ensure the safety for all of our users. So this is our contact information. I think, I know that we all have very different trail systems, but it's really important to have this conversation around what's going to work with your community and bringing those partners to the table. We're very fortunate that we do have very good access and very good cell service. I know particularly in the more rural communities, that might not be the case, but with advances in technology and any type of planning effort to really expedite these rescue efforts, everybody's going to be in a better place, and you're going to be providing a better service to your trail users, your visitors, your residents, and ensuring as much as safe of a safe a hike, a safe a bike ride, a safe a time as possible for your residents and visitors. So that's really all we have. If anyone has questions, we're happy to answer those, or you are welcome to reach out directly to either of us.
Thanks, Elizabeth and Andy. This is such an amazing program and such an inspiration. Thank you for sharing. And we will share the slides out if you don't mind sharing them with us. And they're also part of this recording too. We'll be sharing the recording as well. But if you have a question, just take yourself off mute and ask. We're a small group. Would love to hear, or what are your experiences with trail rescues in your community? How are you managing it? Let's learn from each other. Any comments or questions?
I envy the amount of control you have around your both all your information and your sites. With Yakin River State Trail, it goes over many counties. There's very little cell coverage on a lot of it, and you have signs every quarter mile. I'm like, wow, I'm going to be lucky if I can get it every 2 miles. So I envy a lot of your ability to control that. The program you mentioned, the cow mapping, what was that?
Caltopo.
Cow topo. Is that kind of like all trails, or is that a different thing?
So it's really utilized more so on the search and rescue side of things, and like West wildland firefighting. That's kind of the platform it started on, and we've just kind of adapted it to use it for our trail response. We use it like when we deploy teams out of here. We run Swiftwater teams and USAR teams. We use it for similar purposes when we're doing wide area search and things of that nature. But we've just kind of adapted it to be able to use it for trail response too.
Is that a subscription-based service? How would I?
Yeah, and actually, we get it through North Carolina Emergency Management, and we tag on it to use it here. But it's something our North Carolina task force has utilized and then brought it home. But yes, it is subscription-based.
Hey, Andy, this is Dennis with High Point. For Caltopo, does everybody have to already be signed up in order to be able to use it, or how you guys do it? I guess
we use our task force login to be able to do it. But yeah, technically, you would need to set up an account and then have usernames for a certain number of usernames per the account.
So, from my understanding, I guess you're using one account.
Yeah, technically we are.
Okay.
And I'm not sure too, just thinking about like changing technology. I'm not sure if the rural communities are having any success with the new messaging feature, the satellite feature on the newer iPhones. I know that was my folks were in Avery County during the hurricane, and we were able to use that to safely message out family. So I'm not sure with the change in technology whether programs like this are going to be able to be utilized more successfully in some of these more rural mountainous areas too. So just something to kind of keep in mind as the technology changes.
Yeah, and we're with High Point, so we kind of try to create something similar, and so it's still like in the works. And this kind of helps out, I guess, for kind of create the pathway. And so in anytime we use it, sometimes we use Google Maps. Google Maps kind of shows our trails as well. But yeah, this is very helpful.
Yeah, and I mean, we're happy to meet with you offline as well, Dennis, and kind of go a little more in depth since we're within the same county as well.
Would anyone from a more rural area like to share how they work with their emergency services? I know, Aaron, you're from Brevard.
Yeah, we've got a 400-acre chunk of land with some trails on it outside of town that our fire department makes calls to with some regularity. Um, there's not a ton of mileage on the trail, and I think they really just rely on their just those guys go on the trails and they know them and they kind of fan out and find the people. We've talked about implementing a signage system like that before in that area because it is a little confusing if you don't know where you're at, how to describe, so those guys can get to you as quick as possible. But I don't think we've had anything that they can't handle happen yet, so we've not really looked too much at that. The question I was going to ask is more about interagency kind of collaboration with our forthcoming Acosta Trail that's going to be in Henderson County, Transylvania County, and the city of Brevard's police and fire will be responding to things on the trail as well. I just don't know if anyone has any advice or case studies or something we can look to try to figure out the best way to coordinate with those sorts of calls when people might not necessarily know where they're at. Happy to listen to any advice anyone has on that.
Do y'all all run off the same CAD system, or like you all have your own dispatch centers?
Yeah, the two counties each have their own dispatches. I'm not certain how much if they can talk to each other. I'm not really in the emergency management world, but
Depending on what kind of CAD you use, you could technically go in and virtually mark those areas without having to do physical signage. And if you did that, it may be something if y'all use the same CAD system, you both could see, like the counties could see if a call pinged in one of those areas. Does that make sense?
it does. What happens if I'm like when I call 911, where how does it know where to send that? You know what I mean? Like,
It should wrap at SOS and be able to pick up the location off that phone.
so just kind of it knows my physical location well enough to route me the right direction.
It should get you in the ballpark
All right.
if you got cell service.
Yeah, it's got decent service. So I'm guessing it would only send you to one or the other. It's not really a third option. So either way, they'll probably know
Yeah, and
about
I
the
think just
trail.
pulling together those different entities and getting them in the same room because, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, but they might be called to an incident that is technically outside of the city, but they're the closest responding unit. So they probably already have some type of system set up for collaboration.
Yeah, I know that there's mutual aid agreements between everybody and that sort of stuff's already in place. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing that, Aaron. Anyone else? Well, we can give you back part of your lunch hour. I'm going to stop the recording.